Well, Fulton County District Attorney Fanny Willis was just handed another loss. The Georgia Supreme Court ruled that she can be sued. It's all in regards to open record requests, of course. Fanny Willis has been dodging these requests because she doesn't want to comply with the merchant law firm. Now, that law firm has been excellent at going after Miss Fanny Willis and poking holes throughout her entire criminal case against President Trump, but she doesn't represent President Trump, but he's a part of that case, obviously. But they're doing a great job, and obviously that's ticking off Miss Fanny Willis. So she's not very happy, but she's also being handed another loss by the Supreme Court in Georgia, and we are very thankful for just that. Joining me to discuss is lawyer Phil Holloway. He's also the host of Inside the Law, which is available on YouTube. Phil, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you because I know you actually just spoke with Ashley Merchant and this news broke. And so I wanted to have you on to kind of react to everything that played out. But I also want to discuss what Ashley said to you when she was kind of talking about why she filed this lawsuit in the first place. So let's take a listen to that and I'll get your reaction on the other side.
But the law says that they, as public officers, have to give us those documents, have to make them available. And, I was doing requests and they were ignoring me, or they were giving me part information and then closing the request out. That was one of the common sort of schemes where they would, they would give me part of the documents but they wouldn't give me all of them, or they'd be cut off or something like that, just really harassing. To try to force me to have to keep asking. So it's kind of ironic because part of their argument was I was harassing because I kept asking, but I had to keep asking because they kept shutting me down. So, apparently part of their argument was that I was persistent. I had to be persistent because they were persistently shutting me down and ignoring me. So it became clear that there was a pattern. And you saw the judge call it the Ashley Merchant rule. It became clear that they were just saying, sorry, we're not giving you anything. And that just over and over again just kept happening.
Okay, Phil, so they didn't want to comply with the open records request, which they legally are obligated to do. And so now she's able to sue. Break this down for our audience.
All right, so great to be with you as always. Yeah, so a couple of things big happened this week. Of course, the merchant law firm won their lawsuit against Fulton County. It's unclear about whether or not Fulton County is going to appeal, but the Georgia Supreme Court this week also ruled that district attorneys are not immune from being sued under the open record law. And this is important because Willis had asked the court to put this lawsuit on hold while the Georgia Supreme Court was deciding the question. There are other areas where district attorneys and prosecutors might be immune from a civil lawsuit, but the open records law is not one of them. The Georgia legislature specifically created an enforcement mechanism in that law that allows people to bring a lawsuit when these people don't comply. Fanny Willis and another DA over in the Athens-Clarke County area previously had tried to claim that because they are a constitutional, get this, they said they were a judicial officer under the Georgia's Constitution. The DA's offices are sort of tucked away in the judicial branch, but of course they exercise executive authority. The Georgia Supreme Court said, no, that's nonsense. DAs absolutely can and must comply with the open records law, and they are not immune from being sued. And of course, Ashley proved that just this week in Fulton County.
And this is big because she wasn't asking for things that were specifically related to her current case, that I believe. I think she was just asking for generic things like how many people do you have on staff in regards to lawyers? Is that correct?
Yeah, she was asking for things that may not necessarily have had anything to do with the defense of her client in the Donald Trump RICO case. But she was certainly looking for things that might lead to relevant information. As a private citizen or a lawyer or anybody literally off the street, if you just want to know what's going on at your local DA's office, you're allowed to get those records. I mean, if it's not exempt under some specific exemption, like things that are part of a current investigation or things of that nature, then they have to give you their stuff. They have to give you their emails when they're texting their colleagues about where they want to go to lunch and things like that. You are entitled to that information under Georgia's open records law, and the Supreme Court has now made clear that DAs must comply.
Yeah, and that's really important too. I mean, I try all the time to submit FOIA requests, and it's the equivalent to what I've done in the past, especially with the federal government. And they play these same games as well. They don't want to give you the information you're looking for because they know it's going to expose something that they don't want out there. And so they play these little games, and they'll go back and forth with you and say they don't have enough information to conduct a search, or there's no documents there, but you know the documents are there, and you're forced to either sue them or just drop it completely. And for those at home, it's that filing a lawsuit, it could be really expensive, even if you're suing the government for your expenses. And so that's why they do what they do. And it's really infuriating that they get away with it all the time. But Phil, speaking of getting away with it, Fanny Willis didn't want her boyfriend, whatever he is nowadays, Nathan Wade, to give his deposition last week in front of members of the House. And she tried her hardest to block that from happening. Now, I spoke with Chairman Jim Jordan about her efforts to shut them down. And this is what he said. To ask you about Fanny Willis because yesterday, she made an attempt to kind of stop Wade from his deposition and speaking out. She claims, which is kind of laughable, that this is all politically motivated tactics that you guys are using. What do you think about her letter that she forwarded you guys yesterday?
Well, first of all, to say politics when Fanny Willis and when Alvin Bragg campaigned on, when they ran for the job, campaigned on going after President Trump, to then say somehow when we want to find out what exactly is going on here, when we see how crazy these cases are, that we're engaged in politics, that is just ridiculous. Remember, prosecutors are supposed to safeguard the public, not target their political enemies, not go after their political foes. So for her to allege we're playing politics, I think is ridiculous. But again, she can assert certain privileges, but we want to know some of those just basic concepts. And again, we'll get that transcript out just as quickly as we can.
Again, Fanny Willis was trying to dodge all of this and call it politics. But Phil, you've been following this from the very beginning. What's your takeaway from Fanny Willis's office and how they've conducted this investigation and the criminal charges they brought against the president and all of his co-defendants so far?
Yeah, well, so they say sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? And she's doing everything she can to keep the sunlight from being shown into the inner workings of her office. There are obviously things there that she does not want the public to find out. That's why she had the former governor of the state of Georgia there representing both her and Nathan Wade, apparently, in this congressional deposition. Governor Barnes is a lawyer who practices in Cobb County, Georgia, where his office is at least, but he is publicly representing Willis. And then he shows up in Washington, D.C., and according to the transcript, it looks like he is appearing there on behalf of Wade and Willis. And so one has to wonder how much coordination is going on there. What exactly are they trying to hide from that deposition? Wade did not want to give any information at all. Of course, he's happy to go on his favorite podcast. He's happy to go on his favorite streaming shows and give softball interviews, even to certain in the mainstream or the traditional media. He's been giving interviews, and she has had no objection. But when it's under oath and subject to cross-examination, you can see them throwing every single roadblock they can conceive of to keep the truth from coming out, which of course begs the question, what are they hiding? That's the thing we all want to know. And the more they dig in, the more roadblocks they put up, the more we know that they're hiding something that is probably would be something that would be absolutely devastating to the survival of her case against Trump and the rest of them.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I tried to ask Chairman Jim Jordan, because he can't give too much details, specifically what happened during the deposition, and he wasn't able to really give me anything. But there's reports going on that Nathan Wade actually admitted to visiting the White House on multiple occasions. And that's according to Fox News right now. So they've said at least twice he's gone to visit them. I believe he's only billed once, if I'm not mistaken. Phil, what does this mean, though, for Nathan Wade and his credibility if he's making trips to the White House?
Well, if you remember when Ashley Merchant had him on cross-examination, remember she asked him
Mhm.
simple questions about, has he ever booked a cabin, and he waits like 30 seconds to answer a simple question. And then he gets in the deposition room on Congress and he doesn't remember things except he's got these billing records that indicate meeting, with White House personnel. And then to say he doesn't remember, how do you not remember who you met with on the White House staff, or if it's the White House counsel or whoever? It just does not it's just not credible. It defies all belief that you can put this kind of thing in your billing record and then you just don't remember why you put it in there. It's not like a trip to the gas station. This is a billing record that says he met with someone from the White House counsel's office. It just defies all belief.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that he's billing taxpayers, this is insane in itself. Phil, I want to thank you for joining me today. And I also want to remind our audience that you do a great job on your show. It's on YouTube, so go check it out. It's called Inside the Law. Give it a follow. Phil, thank you for everything you're doing. We appreciate it.
You bet. Happy to be here anytime.
This show is being funded by any corrupt corporations or foreign countries. It's being funded by you guys at home, and I don't mean that to sound like a PBS commercial, but seriously, you guys are the reason why we keep this show up and running, and it's because you guys have headed over to supportbre.com. That's supportbre.com. That's where you guys have made either a one-time donation or a monthly donation, and you get to pick the dollar amount. So whenever you're giving to us over at supportbre.com, that money goes directly to the show. As many of you know, we have staff, we've got a team behind us. And so all of your donations are greatly appreciated. So if you'd like to keep us up and going, head on over to supportbre.com today.